Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Icon. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of Esports Analysis. Today, we are not breaking down gameplay. We are going to break down the very first day and the bracket that you see in front of us for the first day of CDL Chicago. So, the last time I did this, it was for Dallas, which was 2 weeks ago. I ended up getting all 4 of the matches correct on day 1. So, hopefully I bring that same luck and that same knowledge and expertise into picking the matches for day 1, again for CDL Chicago. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get right into this. So, in Group A, we have these 4 teams in the top left-hand corner. So, that ends up being, let me move them around. The first matchup is going to be London versus Atlanta. So, this is Group A. Then the second matchup in Group A is going to be Chicago against New York. And again, we'll break these down in a second. I just want to make sure that we're getting everybody in the correct place here. And then once it goes over to Group B, we have LAG, so the Los Angeles Guerrillas against the Seattle Surge. And then when we get to the last matchup for round 1 in Group B, it's going to be the Dallas Empire versus OGLA. So these are the 4 matches we're going to be picking in day 1. I'll try to explain why I'm picking who I'm picking, although some of these will probably be a little bit easier than others. So if we're going throughout the schedule, the very first matchup of the day is London versus Atlanta. And I will say it seems like it's been a really long time since we've seen London play. They weren't at the last event. They were at the one before that. So even though that was the last home event, right, the actual last LAN event, it just seems like it was so long ago. And I haven't really seen London scrim all that much. So they've just kind of course, they have been scrimming, but they haven't been scrimming Chicago. And Chicago's really the only one that we have access to. There have been a few others, like GodRx has scrimmed a little bit, but hopefully other teams start to take off on that. But that's neither here nor there. We also haven't seen much from Atlanta. But if we're just going by the way that these two teams match up, I think in terms of the respawns, there's nothing that London can do to stop Atlanta in the respawns. Now, when it comes to search and destroy, London is a really good search team. It's part of the reason why at their home event, CDL London, their LAN event, which was, it feels like months ago now, that's why they were so successful, because they were able to feed off of scraps and mainly Wuskin in those search and destroy game types. But with this, I just feel like overall, when it comes down to the respawn game types, Hardpoint, Atlanta is so good. Their SMGs are so fast. Simp, Abizi, Celium, they just play so fast. They're always in your face. They're always capable of getting that 3-piece that ends up turning the match in their favor. So for that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take Atlanta in the first matchup of the day. The second matchup and the third matchup hops over to Group B. So we're going to save that Chicago matchup because that's the last matchup of the day on Friday. I think it's played at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's kind of like the nightcap to the Friday matches. But as we go ahead and get into the next match, it's going to be LAG versus Seattle. And this one's tough for me because in the last couple of weeks, we've seen really good performances out of both LAG and Seattle. I kind of went into CDL Dallas thinking these teams wouldn't really have a shot. They were probably going to be overshadowed. We just hadn't really seen a lot from them. And they both had their ups and downs. So for this one, this is a little bit tricky, but I am going to go Seattle here. Now, again, if I was to pick this 100 times, it might be 55 times I pick one team, 45 teams I pick the other, because I do think they are really close. Again, if you were to ask me and these two teams matched up in 3 weeks from now, what would end up happening? My answer might be different. But right now, I feel like, especially behind the AR gameplay of Octane, I just feel like Seattle's going to have what it takes to get through this one. Now, after this, it might be a little bit of a different story. But I am going to give them the advantage in this Group 1 or this Round 1 matchup against LAG. This is the one that I'm the least confident in, just because they're two teams that have shown that they can show up, they can perform, and they've shown that they cannot show up and they just get rolled, right? They've kind of showed both sides of the story there. So I'm going to go with Seattle just because Octane has been playing so well. He's one of the best ARs in the game this year, and I think that their veteran presence will end up giving them a little bit of an edge over LAG. Even though since this is played online, it doesn't really matter all that much, right? Everybody's playing from the comforts of their own setups. So having that veteran leadership isn't so much of a deal as if you were playing at a LAN event, but I'm still going to give it to them. I think that they're going to surprise us and play well on day one. After that, the next matchup here, which is rounding out Group B, would be Dallas versus OGLA. This is another tough one. Even though Dallas played so well at their home event, they did end up losing in the semifinals. And if you think back to CDL LA, Optic played much better than anybody would have ever guessed that they would have played. So this is one that you could probably say could go either way. However, we did just see OGLA scrimmage against Chicago, and it was not very pretty. There were a lot of games. I think I even broke one down where it was like 250 to 80. It was one of the hardpoint maps. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but OGLA did not look the greatest against Chicago. And because of that, I'm going to give it to Dallas. I just feel like overall Dallas is they're a more well-rounded team, especially since they shown just a couple weeks ago that they're still firing on almost all cylinders. They had a couple rough maps, right? But I broke down their search and destroy gameplay against Minnesota. That was the one map that they won. Remember, they lost in the semifinals 3-1. The one that they won was the search and destroy, and they looked phenomenal. And that's probably the low point of where Optic is playing right now. Their respawns, they have enough slaying power in Dashy and TJ and Slasher and some of those other guys, Kenny, of course, that they can compete in the respawns. But when it comes to search, Dallas is just on a different level. They're probably one of the top 2, 3, 4 teams when it comes to search and destroy. So that definitely gives me or lends me the advantage towards Dallas, which leads me to the last match of our night. And again, this isn't as clear cut as it probably would have been, maybe 4 weeks ago, a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. I think 6 weeks ago, if this was a LAN event, everybody would pick Chicago immediately and they would move on, and that would be that. But if you haven't seen the interview that Arcides did on the Call of Duty League YouTube channel, go check it out. I'll link it down below. I also did a reaction to it. It was a really good response. People seem to really love that video. So that came out like 3 days ago. I'll put a card on screen also. But basically, Arcides came out and just said that he kind of let all the skeletons out of the closet, right? He spilled the beans. He said that they don't really practice search and destroy. They don't really play the game, or they don't really know the game all that well. They don't have a ton of search strats. There's a lot of bickering. There's a lot of people waking up 5 minutes before scrims, not being prepared, stuff like that. And that is what makes me a little bit weary of picking Chicago. Now, I do think that even with all of that, they're going to be able to beat New York. Although, again, I'm not the most confident in this. I will say that as I watch this Friday night, I won't be shocked if this is a 3-2 victory for Chicago or if it's a 3-2 victory for New York. Heck, it could even be a 3-1 victory for New York. So those last three outcomes that I just explained to you guys, I wouldn't be shocked with any of those. And the major difference from what we were saying 6 or 8 weeks ago has been Mac Melts. This guy has just been playing out of his mind. He's been playing fantastic. You watch these guys scrim. He's that SMG, that slaying power from the SMG position that New York was missing in the first couple months of the season. And now that he's there, he kind of sets off. You have the slaying power of Envoy, and that would match up pretty well against the slaying power from Mac. So I'm just going to go with Chicago because they just competed 2 weeks ago. They competed fairly well. They did get out of the group play. They lost in the semis, but even with that happening, they did play fairly well overall. I do think that since that interview with Arcides, my guess would be that things have probably clamped down in the Chicago team room. So my guess would be that they're probably going to be a little bit more prepared than what they normally are. So I'm going to go Chicago with this one. So just to kind of recap those 4 matchups, Atlanta is going to win this one 1,000%. Match 2, Seattle versus LAG. This is the biggest toss-up for me, but I'm going to go with the veteran leadership from Seattle. Octane's been playing out of his mind. That's going to give me the edge there for Seattle. When it comes to Dallas and OGLA, Dallas and the ability to just roll people and search and destroy, and the fact that they played fairly well a couple weeks ago gives the edge to Dallas. Then same thing with Chicago. I do think that even though they're going through all the issues that their organization is going through at the moment, I think that they'll prevail. But with the addition of Mac and the slaying power from the SMG position that he's been showing, it would not shock me if New York pulls an upset here. If New York does pull an upset here, then that's going to make things a little bit sketchy as we get into day 2. And speaking of day 2, if this is your first time around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you catch my video tomorrow as I preview and break down the bracket for day 2. If you guys have any comments whatsoever, put them down below. Let me know what your predictions are. Let me know what you think. Does your prediction alter a little bit? Is it a little bit different from what I have? Let me know. I love the interactions. I love hearing what you guys have to say. Make sure you leave a like before you head on your way. And thank you guys so much. Enjoy watching the CDL. We will catch you in tomorrow's upload.